So right now, Kyrie Irving, he's going through a racist attack against his character and against his livelihood because of a falsity in what people portray him as doing. If you haven't heard about it, he posted a tweet about a movie that talks about black Hebrews, and there's some content in there that apparently people have issue with as either not being true or being anti-Semitic. Sure. Here's the problem with that. He made no commentary about it, about the film specifically. So he didn't mention anything about Jews. He didn't mention anything about anything in the film. He mentioned some things that he knows that are indisputable to be false, and that there are black Jews, and the origins of any religion stems back to black people, because this isn't hard. Like, go back to history and you can see who was around at what era. But what has occurred through it is that a lot of sports analysts, pundits, speakers have come out to condemn him, and many of them are black. And I did this video a while ago. I didn't post it yet. It's a tough one for me. The content is actually kind of light, but just the admission of this. But there's a black male animosity thing that goes on in society that's not talked about, and it's a problem. And it stems back to slavery. And people right now seem to think that slavery was so long ago. It ended in 1865-ish. I can look up the exact date, but I'm not gonna. Around that period. From 1865 to 1960s, you had a series of laws and systems called Jim Crow, which was equally as bad as slavery. It may have been worse. So 1960s until mid 1960s until now, blacks have been pretty much free. We'll call it free. So 1860s, 18 to 2000 is 60 to 2000, 40 years. We're in 2022. So 62 years, let's say. So we've been officially free for 62 years. People act like it's so long ago. What we have with Kyrie is a lot of these black sports personalities who speak extremely negatively against him. Charles Barkley, Shaq, Jalen Rose, Shannon Sharp, and there's more. And you would think that they have a duty to at least give him the benefit of the doubt, but they don't feel that. And the fact that they don't feel that is fine. But there's an underlying reason of why people like Shaq and Shannon and Charles and Stephen A talk so negatively against people like Kai. So back during slavery, you had house Negroes and field Negroes. And the benefit of being a house Negro is that you were in the house, you were close to master, and you had a lot of benefits. You ate better, you slept better, all that. Field Negroes were in the field doing the hard work, picking the cotton, picking the tobacco, sugar cane, whatever the crop was. They were out there 17, 18 hours a day. So, but field Negroes, because they felt such harsh conditions, they were more likely to run and leave. And it happened a lot more than they report in history, because it's better to tell the story as white people freed slaves versus they actually escaped. And many of them did, and there were actually areas in the United States where freed slaves could go, and the colonists wouldn't go. So like Florida and South Carolina and Georgia, in that area, that was a big area for what they called, I forgot the name of it, but a movie is coming out about it. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on that. But they were free, not only free, but the colonists were scared to go to war with them. So that happened frequently, is that field Negroes would run away, and they didn't run north always. Many of them went south to Florida, Georgia, South Carolina. So the dynamic of those two, house Negroes would never leave, never, ever, ever, because the conditions were so good in their minds. They had been so institutionalized that they just wanted to be somewhat free. And free in the sense that I don't have to pick cotton, tobacco, sugarcane, or any other crops. So you have your Charles, Shaq, and all them. Why would they be so harsh speaking about Kai on this instance, and then many other black athletes in other instances? Like they're always like so harsh, calling him an idiot, calling him stupid, this guy can't play, and all this. And it's pretty much comes down to policies that were created in the past. So I believe it was during slavery. It was this policy called meritorious manumission. And what meritorious manumission did was, if you were a slave, because at that point they were all black, if you had any info about any harm coming to the plantation, be it an uprising, be it some runaways, whatever, if you were to give the master that info, then you would be given benefits. And what a lot of us always call the benefits is butter biscuits. These systems were put in place to pit us against each other, and there was no reparative structures put in place to, work through these damages. And so what you have is that, through up until the 60s, like what you would get is, when there was organized black groups, inside of it was always a snitch, and they were always brought down by a snitch. So you have to look at that, and then you look at where we are today, and you have Shaq, Charles, Stephen A, and all these people, and what do they act as? They are kind of essentially the house Negroes of the day, and that their positions are very safe, very comfortable, and there's no way that they would ever risk those positions to back their brother who is in the line of unfair criticism. They just jump right in line and say he is wrong. And you can see in their face sometimes the embarrassment, because the Kai thing, like Kanye, that one's hard to defend, because of his language was not used with strategy. He was right on 80% of what he said, but when you say certain things that are so negative, then your 80% just gets thrown. But Kai is different, because Kai is very smart, and he knows what he was doing. He knows what he did, and he knows what he said. So here we lay as black men in the United States and across the world, but I only know about culturally here, is that we have so many disagreements amongst ourselves because we all don't share a common set of moral codes and qualities. So Charles and Shaq and Stephen A, they have no problem being disrespectful towards another black man because they don't feel it. Like they have completely almost disconnected from that struggle that they once were a part of. And because their lives are so comfortable, they almost don't even see a struggle anymore. That touches on to another thing of why you see a lot of rappers come back to their hood, because they don't want to get so far taken away from the struggle, because they know they can help it, and they don't want to be like Shaq and Charles. And we've seen this it's happened since I was born. Like, this has always been the case, and we're all aware of it. And so we all who are trying to succeed and stuff, if you're a young black male, like, you have that in your mind when you're starting to win. You're like, how far do I go with this? How much of myself do I have to give away in order to be more successful? And that's when you start to step back, and at times you can sabotage yourself because you feel like it's too much. Like, this is, they're asking me to give away too much of myself. Now the game in it is that you do what you can to gain the info and then bring it back to your neighborhood and to duplicate the same thing that you were a part of in small scale here. So in Newark, like, the goal of a lot of kids is to escape and get out. I understand it because some parts of Newark are tough. However, what if we were to make the parts of Newark that are tough, if we were to make them strong, and that to be a place where people wanted to be and live and be a part of and develop, right? That would be a whole different thing happening in Newark. But it's hard to do that, because once you get out, once you become successful, then your feeling of, yo, I made it, I'm not trying to go back. I'm not trying to be a part of that of that struggle again. And I don't want to be a target. And that is frequently what goes on. There's a deer in this park, crazy. And there's like, this is in South Orange, so it ain't like there's a gang of trees around, but right in the park. Anyway, so this black male animosity towards each other is heavy, and it's very layered, and it's very complex, and no one really talks about it, but it's there. And that's why you see a lot of the language in rap at times is so disrespectful towards each other, because we've grown up in this system, in this way of being, of how we have to value each other in order to raise ourselves. It's sick, but it's a real thing. But the answer to it is hard, because what it actually takes is small groups agreeing on a code and never breaking that code. Because right now we got a lot of people that are breaking the code, and when people do break the code, it's the collective's responsibility to punish them in whatever ways you can. You don't allow them to certain events. So if we actually controlled, like, the BET Awards, which we don't, that's a white award show, but if that was the case, then people like Shaq, Charles, Rose, they wouldn't be allowed to come, because you have done things to damage black society. So this is going long, and this is the longest one I ever did, but basically we're facing some problems and challenges that are hard to overcome because of historical past policies that pit black men against each other, and now it has carried over into today to such a degree that sports, when a person like Kai is standing on his square, we have other black people who are more harsh than any white people could ever be. It's crazy.